My husband is a time traveler. After his first love died, he began overdrawing his own life force to violently turn back the clock, vowing to change history and save her. But he has no idea that every time he travels back, my consciousness goes with him, snapping back into my own body at that exact moment in time. After the 1763rd time loop, my husband was in despair. "Zoe, I've tried so hard. Why can't I save you?" Standing beside him, I spoke flatly. "You've traveled back in time 1763 times, and I've been with you for every single one. The fact you still haven't saved her is giving me an allergy to stupidity." The covers next to me were suddenly thrown back, and Mike shot up from the bed, his expression frantic as he scrambled to get dressed. June 10th, 2024. 7:21 morgens. I glanced at the bedside clock, my heart as still and calm as a stagnant pond. The truth is, I've lived this exact day 1763 times. My husband, Mike Thompson, is a time traveler gifted with the incredible ability to rewind time. For some reason, though, every time he does it, my consciousness is dragged along for the ride, forced back into my body at the start of the loop. His first love, Zoe Evans, is destined to die tonight. And ever since the first time it happened, he has been frantically rewinding time, swearing he'll save her no matter the cost. This is his 1763rd attempt. "Honey, I have to go in early for work today," he said. "I won't be home for dinner." It's the same line he uses at the start of every loop. I could recite it in my sleep. After saying it, he always finishes getting dressed, comes back to the bed, and gives me a light kiss on the forehead. And just as the thought crossed my mind, Mike finished straightening his collar, walked over, and leaned down. Unlike all the other times, I pushed him away. "Zoe is at that breakfast diner on North Lincoln Avenue. You should hurry." After all these loops, I had Zoe's entire daily schedule memorized. But Mike didn't know that. He just stared at me, stunned. How did you?" He was about to ask how I knew, but he caught himself and quickly changed his tune. "What does her location have to do with me? I'm going to the office." Still lying. I sighed. "If you can't let her go, why are you still lying to me?" After enduring so many of these time loops with him, my spirit has gone numb. Whatever little love and patience I had left for him has been ground to dust by the endless repetition. "What are you trying to imply?" Mike glared at me. "How many times do I have to tell you? Zoe and I are just friends. Can you please get your mind out of the gutter? Not everyone is having an affair." I met his gaze and said nothing. Over the course of 1763 time loops, the definition of just friends had become hopelessly blurred. A dirty mind sees dirt everywhere. "I'm not going to waste my breath explaining it to you." Mike scoffed and stormed out of the room. A moment later, the front door slammed shut. I lay in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. If Mike can't save Zoe, he'll never give up. He'll just keep looping time, burning away his life force with each attempt. And I'll be forced to follow him into this endless, agonizing cycle, suffering and struggling right alongside him. I had to do something, not for the dying Zoe Evans, and certainly not for the laughable love between Mike and me. I had to do it for myself. I threw on a light cardigan and left the apartment. June in Chicago had brought a persistent, drizzly rain. The cool morning breeze carried a fine mist that chilled me to the bone. I pulled my cardigan tighter and drove toward North Lincoln Avenue in the drizzle. There was a popular little diner there, and since it was Memorial Day weekend, it was already packed with tourists eager to experience Chicago's famous breakfast scene. As soon as I got out of the car, I spotted Mike in the crowd, and beside him, Zoe Evans eating a bowl of oatmeal. I walked straight up to their table, ordered a coffee from the waitress, and sat down across from them. "Mia, what are you doing here?" Mike's eyes went wide when he saw me, clearly flustered from being caught in his lie. "Listen, let me explain. I was on my way to the office, but I had no interest in hearing his excuses. I just held up a hand, my face a blank mask. Just eat." The three of us ate the rest of our breakfast in silence. Zoe finished quickly, but Mike, clearly preoccupied, barely touched his food. The silence must have made him uncomfortable, because he suddenly blurted out, "Mia, the truth is, Zoe is visiting from out of town, and I was just going to show her around. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd get the wrong idea." In the original timeline, Zoe was in Chicago for a charity auction being held tonight. She dies in a freak car accident right after it ends. In the previous 1762 loops, Mike had tried everything to stop Zoe from going to that auction, but nothing ever worked. If he kept trying the same things, he would fail another 1,000 times. I put down my coffee cup, wiped my mouth with a napkin, and slowly stood up, looking at the two of them. I ignored Mike completely and locked eyes with Zoe. Then I clenched my fist and punched her right in the face. The punch landed with a solid thud, and the sound drew the attention of everyone in the diner. Dozens of eyes turned toward our table. Zoe stumbled backward, clearly shocked that I would suddenly attack her. Mike was stunned too, just staring at me in disbelief. But I didn't hesitate. I lunged forward and kicked Zoe hard in the chest. She went flying backward, her body slamming against the wall with another sickening thud. Mike finally snapped out of it, jumping in front of Zoe. "Stop it, Mia. What are you doing? I'm hitting her. Is that not obvious?" I shoved Mike aside and landed another kick. Zoe let out a pained grunt and collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Mike threw all his weight into shoving me away, his eyes blazing with fury. "That's enough. Stop acting like a psycho." I laughed coldly to myself. A psycho? If I was a psycho, it was because his thousands of time loops had driven me insane. Mike, is my husband, yet he was throwing everything away for another woman. And I, for 1,763 identical days, have had to watch him run to her side over and over again. "Move!" My voice was ice, colder than the morning rain. This time, Mike refused to budge, shielding Zoe with his own body. His eyes were filled with hatred. "I won't let you hurt Zoe again. You don't understand anything. You have no idea what's about to happen to her." I knew what he wanted to say, that Zoe was going to die tonight. But he didn't know that my soul had been tortured to the point of despair by these endless repetitions. He felt pain from his powerlessness, but I was the one who had to witness it all, falling deeper into a bottomless abyss with every loop. At least he still had hope. What did I have left but despair? Zoe clutched her chest, her face twisted in pain. My kicks had been brutal. For a fleeting moment, I'd even considered killing her right there. "Zoe, how are you? Are you okay?" Mike's voice was filled with anguish. Forgetting all about me, he knelt down to check on her injuries. The sight sent a sharp, twisting pain through my nearly still heart. The agony tore at my nerves, but my heart had already been shredded to pieces by the endless loops. Mike called an ambulance. As he helped Zoe into it, he glanced back at me, his eyes filled with ice-cold hatred. After they were gone, I watched the ambulance drive away and finally felt a sense of calm return. It seemed my sudden violence had altered the timeline. If Zoe had to be hospitalized, she definitely couldn't attend the charity auction tonight. But it wasn't a guarantee. I had to eliminate even the smallest possibility of failure. I didn't care if Zoe lived or died, but I refused to keep struggling in this endless abyss with Mike. After leaving the diner, I drove to my office. It was Memorial Day, so the whole company was on holiday and the office was deserted. "Ms. Miller, what are you doing here?" A young woman carrying a stack of files walked out of the records room and nearly ran into me, her face a mask of surprise. She was my assistant, Emily, a total workaholic. "Just came to take care of something. Why aren't you taking the day off?" I asked, the words coming out mechanically. I'd asked her the same question 1,000 times before, and I already knew her answer. Couldn't get a flight home, and I was bored, so I figured I'd get some work done, Emily said with a sweet smile. "Ms. Miller, is there something urgent? Do you need my help?" I nodded and led her into my office. "I need you to go to the hospital, make some arrangements, find a patient named Zoe Evans, and keep an eye on her. Whatever it takes, make sure she stays in the hospital tonight." I handed her a credit card. "Use this to take care of it. I don't care what it costs. I just want results." Emily was a consummate professional. She didn't ask why, just took the card and left. With her watching Zoe, I knew she'd call me if anything unexpected happened. Alone in my office, I opened my laptop and started researching tonight's charity auction. Zoe had died on her way home from the auction. If I could just get her to skip it entirely, maybe I could prevent the accident. Just then, my phone rang. It was Mike. I had no desire to talk to him, so I declined the call. But he was persistent and called right back. The shrill ringing in the empty office grated on my nerves. "What?" I snapped, answering the phone. I had no feelings left for this man. As soon as this was over, I was going to file for divorce. As expected, he was calling to chew me out. "Mia, I am so disappointed in you." And I felt nothing. Whether he was disappointed in me or not was irrelevant. I had lost all patience with him long ago. "And do you have any idea how hard you hit her? Zoe is in the hospital because of you." The moment Zoe got hurt, he seemed to have completely forgotten his original goal. I let out a cold laugh, deciding to drop the pretense. "Mike, are you naive or just genuinely stupid? Haven't you realized I hit her to change the timeline?" The other end of the line went completely silent, but I knew he was still there. I could hear his breathing growing ragged. "Mia, you know." His voice was laced with disbelief. In his mind, he was the only one looping. I was just a background character, an NPC in his story. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles turned white. You've looped time 1,763 times to save her. And I've been right here with you for all 1,763 of them, watching you throw yourself on the line for her over and over. Mike, can you even begin to imagine how that feels? Mike was speechless. It was something that had clearly never occurred to him. He had always assumed he was the only one looping, that I, like everyone else, retained no memory of the previous cycles. But my words had clearly shaken him to his core. After a long silence, his tone was no longer aggressive, but soft, pleading. Mia, can you help me then? Zoe is so young. I can't just stand by and watch her. I cut him off. Whether she lives or dies is none of my business, and I don't care. I just want to escape this endless torture. If you don't want the same result as the last 1,762 times, you'll listen to me. Then I hung up before he could reply. A fire was raging inside me, and I desperately needed an outlet. Over 1,000 repetitions had pushed my mind to the breaking point. The cruelest part was that the person responsible for all of it was the man I loved most. I fought back the urge to destroy everything in my office, lighting a cigarette and leaning back in my chair, my chest still heaving with suppressed rage. A sudden, baseless wave of revulsion washed over me. Everything familiar felt like a cage. I just wanted to escape, and even if I couldn't escape this prison of time, I could at least get away from here for a while. I left the office and drove aimlessly through the dense city traffic. A short while later, I found myself parked near Lakeside University. It was my alma mater, the place where Mike and I had first met, fallen in love. I wasn't sure why I'd driven here. Maybe it was one of the few places left that still held good memories. I walked to the main gate, but was stopped by a security guard. I had to laugh. They always say your alma mater welcomes you back, but in reality, they won't even let you on campus after you graduate. So I just stood by the gate, smoking and trying to figure out how to break this time loop. It wasn't really a predicament. It was just Mike's selfish obsession, but it trapped me all the same. To get out of it, I had no choice but to form a temporary alliance with him and deal with the Zoe problem. Just then, my phone buzzed with an iMessage. It was from Mike. Where are you? Can we meet and talk? I didn't want to talk to him, but for the sake of my own freedom, I agreed. I sent him my location and went back to my cigarette. 20 minutes later, he arrived. He was holding an umbrella, and his face looked drawn and tired. His expression softened as he looked at the university campus behind me, but I was in no mood to reminisce. What do you want to talk about? Seeing that my former warmth and affection were gone, Mike's expression fell. About the time loops? I'm sorry. I truly am, but I didn't have a choice. You're just feeling tired and frustrated by the repetition, but Zoe is losing her life. I need you to understand that. Even if I can never save her, I'd rather time repeat forever. At least then, I can still see her alive, standing right in front of me. I shook my head. I can't understand that, and I won't tolerate it. To be blunt, you're just being selfish. He looked at me, his face etched with pain. Selfish? Do you think this is easy for me? Do you have any idea what this cost me? My life force is draining away. I'm burning through my own lifespan to do this. I stubbed out my cigarette and looked at him through the haze of smoke. No one is forcing you to do this. But what gives you the right to trap everyone else in this single day just to fix your one regret? They might not remember it. They might wake up thinking it's a brand new day, but their souls are still being ground down by this endless repetition. And what about all the other people in the world who are born or get sick or die on this day? What gives you the right to trap them in their suffering, forcing them to endure it over and over again? Mike fell silent, and as he stood there, tears began to stream down his face. He stared at me, his eyes red. Then what am I supposed to do? Just stand by and watch Zoe die? I can't. I just can't. I lit another cigarette and took a long drag. I'll help you this time, but only this once. After it's over, I'm leaving you. Since you're so devoted to Zoe, you might as well be with her. Mike panicked. No, it's not like that. I never wanted to be with Zoe. I love you. I shook my head and put out the half-finished cigarette. But I don't love you anymore. With that, I turned and walked away. Mia, don't go. Mike hurried after me, his eyes even redder than before. He grabbed my arm, his voice thick with tears. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I thought you wouldn't remember any of it. I just wanted to fix this one thing, and then we could be together. I stopped walking and suddenly started to laugh. You wanted to be some unsung hero, and you were willing to drag the entire world down with you. How noble. Mike, we're done. I pulled my arm free, and the umbrella fell from his grasp, tumbling away in the wind. The rain seemed to pick up. His quiet sobs were soon lost in the sound of the downpour. In my memory, This rain had been falling for 1,763 days. If tomorrow ever came, would the rain finally stop? The ringing of my phone pulled me back to reality. It was Emily. Emily, what is it? Her voice on the other end was frantic. Ms. Miller, Zoe Evans is gone. They've searched the whole hospital. None of the doctors or nurses know where she went. Emily sounded panicked, probably blaming herself for failing the task I'd given her. I frowned, but I wasn't surprised. In my opinion, her injuries weren't severe enough to stop her. A simple beating wasn't going to be enough to prevent her death. I reassured Emily that she'd done a great job and told her not to worry about it, then hung up. In the rain, I turned and looked back at Mike, who was still kneeling on the sidewalk, his face buried in his hands. I felt a suffocating tightness in my chest. I had loved this man for so long. His every mood used to affect me deeply. Even now, with all the love gone, I still felt a pang of pity. But he had brought all of this on himself. I would hurt, I would struggle, and I would probably spend many sleepless nights grieving this breakup. But I would never regret my decision. Stop crying. I walked back to him, my voice cold as the rain. Your little girlfriend ran off. Zoe. Mike looked up at me, too shocked to register my sarcastic tone. I couldn't tell if the drops on his face were tears or rain. I nodded. But it's not a total disaster. We know she's scheduled to die at 11:35 p.m. At least she's safe until then. Mike wiped his eyes and scrambled to his feet. The auction. She's definitely still going to the auction tonight. In every one of the previous 1,000 loops, Zoe had attended that auction without fail. That part of the timeline was fixed. There's one thing we've never considered, I said. Why is Zoe so determined to go to this auction? I frowned, thinking it over. Mike just stared at me, his expression blank. In all his previous attempts, he'd only focused on the surface problem, stopping Zoe from being on that specific road at 11:35 p.m. It never stopped to think about why she was there in the first place. I never thought about it either, just assuming it was a fixed point in the timeline. But now, even after I'd put her in the hospital, she was still determined to go. That meant the auction was incredibly important to her. It was probably the whole reason she was in Chicago. We should go find Zoe. She doesn't know Chicago that well. I'm worried she'll. Mike trailed off, glancing at me guiltily. His concern for her was clearly instinctual, and he'd only just remembered how inappropriate it was to be worrying about another woman in front of his wife. But I didn't care anymore. When you've completely fallen out of love with someone, things like that don't bother you. I think I know where she went. I turned and walked toward my car. Seeing my lack of reaction, Mike looked disappointed. Maybe my anger had never made him feel guilty, but my uncharacteristic indifference was clearly getting under his skin. He hurried to catch up and cautiously slid into the passenger seat, the seat that had always been his. The irony of his hesitation wasn't lost on me. I started the car and drove away from the place that held so many of our best memories, and I didn't look back. I can't remember the last time I saw a sunny day in Chicago, Mike said, staring out the window. I couldn't tell if he was being wistful or just sad. For over 1,000 identical days, it had been nothing but this dreary, endless rain. Mia, do you remember? He asked, turning to look at me with a nostalgic glint in his eye. You used to meet me after my classes every day. When it rained, you'd always be there with an umbrella, and we'd wait for the bus together. It was always so crowded, and we'd be shivering in the cold, and you'd wrap your arms around me to keep me warm. You know, Mia, we were so happy back then. We had just graduated, we didn't have any money, but we were happy. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind drifted back through the years. Scene after scene from our past flashed through my mind like a movie montage. I remembered how gentle and caring he used to be. He'd pull the covers over me if I kicked them off in my sleep. He'd wipe a smudge of food from the corner of my mouth. He'd just sit with me in silence when I was feeling down. Time had washed away the bonds between us, but it couldn't erase the fact that we had once been in love. The funny thing is, I said, my voice like ice, we're reminiscing about the past while we're on our way to chase after another woman. My cold words shattered the nostalgic atmosphere in the car, and the memories evaporated like smoke in the wind. A heavy silence fell between us. Mike kept his head down, so I couldn't see his face, but I could hear the sob in his voice. Mia, I miss who we used to be. I never wanted to leave you. I just wanted to save Zoe as a friend. Can you understand that? I was silent for a long time before I finally answered, my voice carefully neutral. I could try to understand, but I can't forgive you. Mike, love is selfish. Mike turned to look out the window again. I couldn't hear him crying, but I could see his shoulders shaking. I parked in front of the Galleria. When I'd attacked Zoe, I'd ruined her expensive dress. If she was still planning on going to the auction, she needed a new one, and this was the closest high-end mall to the hospital. As I was getting out of the car, Mike grabbed my arm, a hesitant look on his face. After all these years together, I could read him like a book. "Are you afraid I'm going to hit her again?" I asked, my expression unreadable. He looked embarrassed, but he nodded. "It's not right to hit people. You never used to be violent. You never used to be so passionate about other women." I shot back. Mike lowered his head and fell silent. I didn't want to argue about it anymore, so I just walked into the mall. We finally found Zoe in a high-end boutique. She was trying on dresses. Other than the bruise under her eye from my punch, she didn't look too badly hurt. I couldn't help but wonder if I should have hit her harder, maybe broken her leg. Would that have been enough to keep her in the hospital? Probably not. If she was determined enough, she'd just pay someone to wheel her into the auction. Mike and I walked into the boutique. When Zoe saw me, her face paled, and she took a few steps back, clearly afraid of me after what I'd done that morning. Mike rushed her aside. "Zoe, you can't go to the auction tonight." His voice was urgent, his desperation growing as the night drew closer. Zoe glanced at me warily, then looked back at Mike. "Why not?" Mike stared her straight in the eye. "Because if you go, you'll die." I had to stop myself from rolling my eyes. He was so stupid, so desperate. No wonder he'd failed over 1,000 times. Zoe was stunned for a moment, then she laughed. "Don't be ridiculous. As long as she stays away from me, I think I'll be perfectly safe." She shot me a dirty look. I stepped forward. "You're willing to go to this auction even after being beaten badly enough to be hospitalized. You don't seem like the charitable type." Zoe frowned and scoffed. "Is there something wrong with being charitable? Or do you just assume everyone is as crude and violent as you are?" Her tone was dripping with contempt, but I didn't get angry. After all, she was already a dead woman walking. But her reaction told me everything I needed to know. This auction wasn't as simple as it seemed. Someone like Zoe wasn't going for charity. The only way to find out why she was so determined to be there was to go to the auction myself. I had what I needed, so I turned and left without another word. Zoe went back to looking at dresses, but Mike was clearly conflicted. He looked from me to Zoe, then back again, before finally gritting his teeth and following me out of the store. "Mia, have you figured out a way to save her?" he asked, hurrying to catch up with me. I didn't answer his question. Instead, I asked one of my own. "Why aren't you with her? Why are you following me?" He pouted, a wounded look on his face. "Why are you being so mean to me?" I stopped and turned to face him. "For the last 1,762 loops, you've been nothing but cold and dismissive to me while you were trying to save Zoe. Now that I'm treating you the same way, you can't handle it." He bit his lip and reached for my hand. "I am sorry. I didn't mean to be. It's just, I was so worried about Zoe that I wasn't thinking straight." I pulled my hand away. "You didn't mean to be? Or you just didn't care how you treated me because you thought I wouldn't remember any of it?" He hung his head and said nothing. "The truth is," I continued, "I've been enduring your emotional abuse for 1,763 days. Do you know how long that is? It's almost 5 years. 4 or 5 years. I've been trapped in this hell with you. Other people can get divorced. They can separate. But me? I'm stuck repeating the same day, over and over, suffering and struggling in this endless abyss." His eyes welled up with tears again, and he threw his arms around me. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mia. I didn't know. If I had known how much you were hurting, I would have. I would have." "You would have what?" I pushed him away. "You can't even say it. Because you would never have given up on Zoe, no matter how I felt. You couldn't do it." I didn't wait for a reply. I just turned and walked out of the mall. In the reflection of the glass doors, I could see Mike standing frozen in place, watching me go, an expression of utter desolation and regret on his face that I had never seen before. But I just kept walking, got in my car, and drove away. Evening fell, and the sun began to set. I leaned against my car, smoking a cigarette and studying the building in front of me. It was a lavishly decorated private club, the venue for tonight's charity auction. Luxury cars were already pulling up to the entrance, where 2 lines of security guards were checking guest invitations and IDs. It was a members-only event, and you couldn't get in without an invitation. I didn't have one, of course, but that didn't mean I couldn't get in. I'd cased this place in a few of the earlier loops, and I'd already found a way in. Just then, a delivery truck pulled up. I stubbed out my cigarette and followed it around to the back entrance. 10 minutes later, I was walking down one of the club's opulent hallways. Just then, I saw a man and a woman walking toward me. My face hardened, and I was about to turn and leave when I heard my name. "Mia." It was Mike, looking surprised to see me. He grabbed Zoe's arm and hurried toward me. He looked me up and down, confused. "How did you get in?" I shrugged. "I don't think I need to report my movements to you." He gave an awkward laugh. "Well, since you're here, we might as well stick together." He tugged on my sleeve and whispered, "If we both keep an eye on Zoe, we can make sure nothing happens to her." "That's your job, not mine," I said, then glanced at Zoe with a smirk. "Besides, I'm sure this great philanthropist wouldn't want to be seen with a brute like me. Zoe scoffed, crossing her arms and looking down her nose at me. Of course not. This is a high-class event, not a place for thugs. I won't bother reporting you to security, but you should know your place. Her words were dripping with arrogance, as if her magnanimity in not reporting me somehow made her superior. Mike looked even more embarrassed. Just be careful, he whispered, and call me if you find anything. I didn't answer, just turned and walked away down the hall. After leaving the two of them, I grabbed a cocktail from a passing waiter and began to wander through the club. The auction hadn't started yet, but I'd already seen several of Chicago's most powerful business leaders arrive. I didn't see any of them in the main hall, though, which meant they must have been meeting somewhere more private. As I was searching, I found a hidden stairwell. I tried the door, but it was locked. I waited around the corner for a few minutes, and soon, a distinguished-looking, well-dressed man walked up to the door. He took out a key card and swiped it. The door beeped and unlocked. As he walked through, I slipped in behind him, catching the door before it could close. I waited until he was gone, then I pushed the door open and went inside. It was a staircase leading down. I crept down quietly, and what I saw at the bottom shocked me. It was a hidden basement, but it was even more lavishly decorated than the rest of the club. Several middle-aged men in expensive suits were lounging on a sofa in the center of the room, surrounded by a line of beautiful, slender women. It was a shocking scene. I couldn't believe this was happening right under the club's glamorous facade. Is this place secure? One of the men asked. Of course, another replied. These women have all been carefully vetted. They know how to keep their mouths shut. I'm not talking about the women, the first man said. I'm talking about this auction. We're moving a lot of money through it. Are you sure you can get it back to us clean? My eyes widened, and I clapped a hand over my mouth to keep from gasping. I understood instantly. This auction wasn't about charity at all. It was a front for laundering money. Zoe must have known about this. She was probably one of the participants. I quickly pulled out my phone and started taking pictures and recording video. These were some of the most powerful people in Chicago. If this got out, it would be a massive scandal. I listened for a little longer, then a few of the men got up to leave. I shrank back into the shadows to avoid being seen. After they were gone, I was about to leave myself when I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. Once that money is in my pocket, it's not coming out, one of the remaining men said. After the auction, I want you to have them all taken care of, one by one, and make it clean. My breath caught in my throat, and my hand, still holding my phone, began to tremble. I finally understood how Zoe had died. It wasn't just her. All the donors at this auction were going to meet with accidents. I stayed hidden in the darkness for a few more minutes. Then I carefully slipped away. Even after the heavy door clicked shut behind me, my heart was still pounding. I didn't waste any time. I hurried out of the club and back to my car, where I finally started to calm down. I immediately called the police and sent them the evidence I'd recorded. 10 minutes later, the street was filled with the sound of sirens as police cars surrounded the club. A few minutes after that, I watched as the men from the basement were led out in handcuffs and put into the back of police cars. Zoe, Mike cried, running out of the club, his face a mixture of shock and confusion. It was only then that I noticed Zoe was among those being arrested. She must have been one of the participants. She was alive, but she was also on her way to prison. I wasn't sure if Mike would consider that a win or a loss. I lit a cigarette and watched the rain fall. It wasn't a heavy rain, but it felt oppressive. There was a knock on my window. I turned and saw Mike standing there. I unlocked the door and he got in. His face was pale and he was clearly still in shock. Getting arrested is better than getting killed, I said, cracking the window to let the smoke out. I looked over at him. You're not going to loop time again to try and stop her from coming to the auction, are you? It was my biggest fear. If Zoe didn't go to the auction, she wouldn't get arrested. If Mike was determined to get a perfect ending, he might try another 1,000 times until he got it right. But Mike just shook his head. She got what she deserved. I'm not going to use my power to help her get away with it. I nodded. Good. Then this is finally over. I turned and looked out the window again. Maybe the rain will finally stop tomorrow, I said. Mike was looking at me. Mia, I'm never going to have anything to do with Zoe again. Okay, I said, my voice flat. That's your choice. It has nothing to do with me. He gave a bitter smile. I was so wrong. About everything. Can you ever forgive me? I can forgive you, I said, meeting his gaze. A look of joy spread across his face, but I quickly extinguished it. But that doesn't change the fact that we're over. Forgiveness is about letting go. If I spend the rest of my life hating you, I'm only torturing myself. Mike, there's no future for us. Let this rain, which has been falling for 1,763 days, be the end of our marriage. I opened the car door and got out. You can have the car, I said, then turned and walked away. On the horizon, the clouds were beginning to part, and the rain was slowing to a drizzle. The rain was finally stopping. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on a grassy field, surrounded by the sounds of laughter and shouting. I sat up, confused. I was on a soccer field, surrounded by a running track. Mia, are you going to play or what? You can't just take a nap in the middle of the game. A girl walked over and playfully punched my arm. She was my college roommate? What was her name again? I was completely stunned. I had no idea what was happening. Was I dreaming? I reached out and pinched her arm. Ow, hey, she yelped, then tackled me to the ground, pinning me. You want to pinch me? I'll show you. She started tickling my ribs and under my arms. The sharp, ticklish sensation was undeniable. This wasn't a dream. I was back in college. Mia. A clear male voice called my name from across the field. My roommate, Chloe, glanced over, then pulled me to my feet, pointed. Look, it's Mike Thompson. The class heartthrob is looking for you. I frowned and looked where she was pointing. It was Mike, or rather, a 20-year-old Mike, wearing a Lakeside University sweatshirt and walking toward me with his hands behind his back. Mia, I like you, he said, suddenly revealing a bouquet of flowers he'd been hiding. The entire field erupted in cheers. A public confession was primetime entertainment on a college campus, especially a popular guy confessing to a girl. Chloe grabbed my arm, practically vibrating with excitement. Oh my God, Mike Thompson is asking you out. Mia, this is huge. Say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes. The crowd started chanting, all of them grinning at us. Mike looked at me, his expression open and sincere. I knew this was just another one of his tricks. He brought me back to this perfect moment, hoping to use it to repair our shattered love. Under the expectant gazes of the entire crowd, I pushed away the flowers he was holding out to me. Sorry, I said, my voice firm. I've got big plans for my future, and I don't have time for a relationship right now. My words silenced the cheering crowd, and the hopeful smile on Mike's face froze and shattered. Chloe stared at me, her eyes wide. Whoa, I never knew you could be so savage, Mia. I just threw an arm around her shoulders. Come on, let's get back to the game.